Thank you, everyone, for having me. Coming from the Philippines and joining you, the Portuguese, Spanish-speaking people. Well, I am here from the Philippines. Thank you so much. And with all your support and prayers to me, I was able to survive and I am here. So I am sharing to you today brief and about the experience I have with the ministries I've been in. The title is Tying Up Frayed Ends, Weaving a Stronger Fabric. The best times, the worst of times. That's how I describe the last several months of my work with the Convention of Philippine Baptist Churches, leading its program on development ministries. During this time, despite all the risk and the restrictions, we were able to reach out with the list of our sisters and brothers who are the most adversely affected by the harsh lockdowns due to COVID-19 pandemic. It never fails to warm my heart to see the welcoming smiles of these folks with their grateful eyes. So little we were able to give, yet it means so much to them. As we depart from their places, though we were filled with worry, well, so how will they survive for the next coming days and even more for harsh lockdowns? I feel my heart being pricked whenever I think about these things. And the more we strove to gather material support for them as we could help to ease their difficulties, especially when natural disaster comes and brought distractions to them. Oftentimes, 20 or more disasters are coming every year, and three or or more of them are disastrous. And considering the situation of the Philippines, that we have difficulties to rise up whenever disasters comes. Our day to day, we are struggling for our living. We braced ourselves to bring the needed relief to our people, waking up before dawn breaks and staying up late, traversing roads and waters with our vehicles loaded with relief goods for the least of our sisters that I did for the last 26 years. Where, while others are sleeping in the comfort of their homes, we were there on the road. Incidentally, around this time, other significant issues hounding our organization have begun to surface and caught people's attention. There were calls to address these issues, among which are the Bitcoin scam with our overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong. They are members of our church there who were persuaded by the pastor, who was then a member of our board of trustees, to invest in a Bitcoin exchange, assuring to double their money in 1 month time, which turned out to be a scam. So the OFWs demanded accountability from the pastor, who suddenly became elusive, causing them to call the attention of the CTBC Board of Trustees to ask the pastors to explain to them and return their money if possible, and if not, have a talk with them and assure them of their difficulties. Actually, the money, they just borrowed it from the bank, so they have difficulties to return it. But then their request fell on deaf ears. A couple of years passed, there is still no action to their appeal. That is why we spoke openly about it and demanded for an accountability. We know that these OFWs opted to work as domestic helpers, leaving their own families to take care other families leaving their children behind to take care the children of their employers. There were also a demand from the members of our board to financial reporting and system of checks and balances in our business office, to conduct an investigation on illegal cutting of trees, in which some of them are endemic species in our camping site, among others. But even our board was beginning to take action. The calls were met with a seemingly intentional effort to cover up, to cause us to stop talking about these issues. I was among them who raised about the issues because my work and advocacies demand that I stand up and speak out. I know I am on the right, and there was nothing to be afraid of it when we do. Human rights and work for justice and peace lie at the very core of our convention's mission, and the issues we were talking about and fighting for are legitimate and organizational concerns. But then, insidiously, chat groups started to surface. These group chats, one even carrying our convention's logo and is composed of pastors, began to spread stories about my program's alleged connection with the support of the revolutionary underground. A video of an allegedly former cadre made its rounds among the pastors and churches, with one church even hosting an alleged transparency forum face to face online with the military as their local as their resource persons. The National Task Force to End Local Communist Activities in the Philippines, the purpose of which is to publicly humiliate and ragtag not only me, but my two other sisters who were no longer connected with the convention and who had devoted the best years of their lives serving our convention. We were publicly humiliated, insulted, baseless allegations were thrown against us. A couple of other churches followed suit. The forum went ahead even when the board does not recognize the officialness of the activity. It was like a nightmare to realize you have been red tagged. Since in this country, being red tagged is like reading your obituary because it is a prelude to extrajudicial killing. You will be a victim of it. It actually gives the military an excuse to salvage their targets. The manner by which the video has been passed on and forwarded was so subtle that it spread fast, and those who were gullible enough believed it. The cadre's credibility was already been questioned openly, and his allegations countered. But because one cannot keep track of the responsible ones in this fast world of social media, even if explanations and the right information were fed to some groups, still there were many who got to believe in the incredibly spun tale of the video. Our board decided to call the pastors group, those intergroup who initiated this red tagging, to a dialogue, but the leaders refused. Only later we did know that this group of pastors are members of the military group, and they are all actually military assets and are regular attendees of the Office of the Presidential Assistance on Religious Affairs, a group purposely created to keep track of the activities of religious leaders. This leader from our denomination is none other than our General Secretary. So sad. And even in one special board meeting dealing with specifically with the crucial issues of red tagging, the General Secretary was evasive and was already taking the perspective of the military. That was a big letdown for us. I felt like I were being fed to the wolves. That was a big letdown for us. That's exactly what happened in the Transparency Forum, where we three were red tagged and threatened by the representative of the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. And also, they issue some money laundering, and the anti-money laundering council lawyers were there also. And with all the lies and baseless accusations, only to demolish me and my sisters. With their interest of the position, they did that. And they succeeded. All of them now are sitting in the board of trustees of our convention. And so sad. Our world seemed to have crashing down on us. We were scared, especially that anything could happen. While walking, we can be shot or stopped or sideswiped, like what happened to other cause-oriented groups who work for justice and peace. In fact, in one of our trips in our campsite to check the complaint on the illegal cutting of trees, we noticed that our vehicle's plate number were being photographed and were posted in the military website. And a couple of times I noticed from my side mirror that we were being tailgated by motorcycle riding in tandem. At night in our house, motorcycles stopped in front of us and made us terrified, including my grandchildren. Suddenly, I mentally started to freeze since everywhere I go, whatever I do, I was playing an easy target. There were times I trembled uncontrollably, but for the sake of my grandchildren, I have to get hold of myself. I sought legal advice and tried to limit my going out. The legal actions were halted because of my emotional situation. And of course, there are some limitations of the financial. But the forces of darkness were not content with that. We were able to work to connect with the military to clear our names. And later on, we found help from the military, from friends from the military. And with that, the pastors were not contented of it. When they later realized the thread tagging us will not work very well, they tried a new tactic, that of maligning my person. These groups of pastors begin to spread lies, issues, slanderous letters of immorality against me, and use the baseless accusations of the program I led as not being able to have financial report for the past 20 years. Nothing is farther from the truth. Anybody who had worked in an institution like the convention will know that nobody gets money from an institution with a well-established financial practices, procedures, without accounting for it, up to the last centavo. Donors, partners, friends sent letters to the Board of Trustees commending the work of the development ministries for the last 26 years. But then stories made its rounds, and the gullible caught and chose to believe it again. It was published on social media to destroy us. There were those who stand by me, and I am grateful for them. And BPFNA is one. But then it gets to the point that one gets too exhausted, especially when there is no let up and in their accusations and attacks. I ultimately became a bunch of frayed nerves that I had to see a psychiatrist to save my sanity. And after much thought, I decided to have I decided to be kind to myself. I need to take care of myself and not simply allow them to walk all over me. So I asked the board for an early retirement. The board understood fully my situation, so it granted my request. It was the hardest decision to make, considering how I love the work of the development ministries, and parting with it seemed to be tearing my heart apart. But I had to do it. Even if I'd be losing my income, I know that even if I will suffer financially, it will only be for a while. I am certain other opportunities of service similar to the DM work will open up soon for me. I am quite hopeful. I used to a simple and hard life. A few months of greens from our gardens in the side of our house will even be helpful, I guess. All through my ordeal, I found strength and inspiration from my grandchildren. They restore my faith that life is still good. And when they hug me in the morning when I come, and when they hug me every time I come home, weary and dejected, they infuse freshness to my jaded eyes and bring warmth of sunshine to the face through their smiles and laughter every morning when they hug me. Truly, hope springs eternal, and my network of support from friends far and near props up. It props me up, strengthens, and assures me that despite formidable odds, truth and justice will prevail. Together with them, I will tie up the frayed ends of the fabric, and that is my life, and weave anew to create a stronger one. The painful and terrifying experiences I have cannot take the goodness in my heart and my passion to serve. Thank you very much.
Henna, thank you so much for sharing your testimony with us. What a beautiful gift you've given us tonight. So now we're going to move into times of questions. So I'm already seeing a couple, all those that were clap hands. So we have about 15 minutes. So you can still put your questions in the chat and we can read them from there. Or if you would like, you can raise your hand and we will call on you. So if we're not seeing any hands yet, I would like to start with Henna, the question, how is the new generation of peacemakers in the Philippines? In our context, many peacemakers are tired. Many pastors have given up. How have the young peacemakers in the Philippines stayed connected and encouraged? And how have older generations shared leadership and wisdom?
Peacemakers in the Philippines, the history of the Philippines, we had for 48 years now, we have a sustained and organized group that those are very critical and is very vocal for human rights and only here in the Philippines. But for the past administration and the previous one and the recent one, it's so very dangerous. You cannot even go out and speak. For us, we have to limit our going out. Even our social media accounts were being tracked. So we have to be very careful of it. Extrajudicial killings are so very increases in the Philippines now. The desaparecidos is so many now in the Philippines. We just had the news now that there are some leaders of the revolutionary groups, the high-ranking leaders of the revolutionary groups are being caught in here in Iloilo, and that is in the news now. And sometimes it hinders in the work for justice and peace because of fear. So that's why we have to limit and we have to be very careful. So if we work for justice and peace, we have to be very careful also. But it doesn't, they cannot take that away from us to work for peace and to voice out the human rights violations that this government is doing to the Filipinos.
Thank you. And I should have said that question came from Jason Smith. Jason, thank you for that wonderful question. Next, Leanne, if you want to ask your question, and then Barb will have you ask after that.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Henna.
Yes.
I'm thinking, you know, just to sit and be with you after not having seen you in person in for 3 years. It's been such a gap in my life and work, and I think that this group might be interested in hearing about the trio that is the Baclagon sisters, and beginning with Feras and the connection with the Baptist Peace Fellowship meeting in, was it Chiang Mai that that Feras went to? And she went home determined to be a peacemaker, and it just went, it just spread throughout your family and contributed so much to development ministries at that point.
So sad what happened to CPBC. We work for peace, conflict transformation for so long a time, and so sad that this now infiltrated with the military, and our work was, but well, it doesn't ends there. Still continue to work for it.
Thank you, Lee.
Miss you.
Barb?
Okay, first I want to say that both my best friend and one of my sisters-in-law are Filipina, so I feel this very, very emotionally. And I have two related questions. One of them is, when you chose to retire, did your oppressors consider it a victory for their campaign against you? And the second question is related. Are you safer now that you have retired?
Oh, thank you so much. Uh, well, as of now, we still fear for our lives. Yes, anybody, anytime, anybody can sue us and can go against us, and we're still very careful of it. You know, there's so many groups in the government, especially in the military, and they are in conflict with one another, and they are in competition with one another. We all only went to one group, the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group. So we were there to clear our name, but they said there are other groups like the National Task Force to End Local Anti-Communist Group. So they don't know of their plans. That's why they told us to be very careful and limit our going out, and also not to be very vocal, especially in the human rights violations and other concerns, especially with the anti-government issues. And so that's why sometimes it's very difficult because we're not used to it. We have to just keep quiet of what is happening in the community and in the places where we live in, and this illegal arrest and the abduction of these peacemakers. So sometimes it's very difficult to keep quiet. But when we work well silently, and well, our conviction to work for peace is there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else? Oh, Javier, would you like to ask a question?
Sí, muchas gracias, Ana. Realmente buenos días para ti, buenas noches acá en México. Admiramos tu trabajo y oramos por tu vida y por la vida de las demás personas que te acompañan. Esta historia que tú cuentas, pues obviamente esa se repite en muchos de nuestros países, la criminalización de la protesta. y la utilización de todos los medios que se conjugan para frenar la protesta pública, ¿no? Mi pregunta era, sin exponer tu vida y la vida de los defensores de los derechos humanos en Filipinas, ¿qué más podemos hacer como Bautistas por la Paz? ¿Cómo podríamos unirnos a fin de advertir y proteger tu vida y la vida de las demás personas que están como tú, amenazadas de muerte por su vocación a favor de la paz, con justicia, con dignidad en su país? ¿Qué podemos hacer sin exponer sus vidas, ¿no?
Yes, for now, it's a bit difficult to go to the communities to continue my passion to help, and also with the, but especially working for peace and justice for those who experience it. So for now, we're working on with my sister is who is a retired development ministries director, also the convention of Philippine Baptist churches. We're working on for projects for development, helping the people in especially during disasters to, and also um, to show to them that this work is not the work of the revolutionary group or whatever, but this is a mandate from our church, a mandate from Jesus, a mandate from God to help our sisters and brothers, and without telling them that this is not the work. Helping the poor is not revolutionary. It's not revolutionary. It's not a terrorist act. This is the work of, supposedly the work of the church and the mandate from God. So my sister and me are working on for project proposals to continue to work on to help the community, to assist the community, especially on during disasters, the development work on the economic situation of the Philippines, especially it was heightened by the pandemic, the difficulties of the people, even surviving. And with the recent oil price hike, prices of commodities are unreachable, especially with the majority of the Filipinos who are living below poverty line. So it's very difficult for them to survive day to day. So we are planning, and we're working to assist them in just a simple livelihood for them to sustain their day to day. That especially those who cannot be reached out by the government in far-flung communities, we are planning for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier, for that question. Henna, we have one last question for you before we wrap up our question time. You mentioned self-care and having to see a psychiatrist after facing unjust and evil forces. Our conference has been focused on the theme of healing. Can you talk a little bit about how you have been able to heal your heart, your soul, your spirit, and even your mind, and physical body as well after threats of force of fear?
Yes, especially, yeah, this the red tagging happened November 2021, and with that, I feared for my life during that time. So every time I went out, uh, I I thought I was being followed, paranoia there, because well, knowing the situation in the Philippines, if you were red tagged, it's just like I mentioned, it's just reading your obituary because it is a prelude to extrajudicial killing, like what happened to others, and so sad that even though the allegations of this cadre is not credible and it are all baseless, so sad to think that members of our churches believe in this. I was so disappointed that we work hard. We work for so long a time, letting them understand, to raise their consciousness that what happened in our society, in our communities, in our churches. Uh, we have to be conscious of it, and this is what happening. So, and this is also the work of the church to help the community, not only to help there for the Sunday worship service to worship God, but the situation in the community, the situation in the community is the concern of the church also. It's so sad that they believe in this allegations, and they talk not good against us, that or a bit disappointed for me. But for 26 years, I've been working with the Convention of Philippine Baptist Churches, helping this community uh, with sincerity and gladness in my heart to help them. But then, all of a sudden, with this military infiltration with the Convention of Philippine Baptist Churches using the pastors, so they all succeeded with these issues, and it was so, and I felt so sad. And so sometimes I say, where is God? Is he unfair? But well, then that's not. He's there. Then this is the work of peace and justice and working with the people. It's so difficult that sometimes many have lost their lives to work for it. But let's not stop on this. Let's continue to work for this, for I know that one day, if not in our timeline, it will continue. And when one dies, many will replace. So I am so thankful for that. And my work for the development ministries for 26 years, many also has raised their awareness. And with that, we will work with them to continue the work for justice and peace.